Okay, Rabbi say I'm back. I apologize about that interruption. And we're continuing. Okay? We're holding Pasuk Kuf Mem. Trufa imroscha miyoid. Which means your mitzvahs are incredibly corrective. The word trufa is like Imas Hashem trufa, which is found in Chassidus a lot based on the Pasuk. And in Medish, it's Kimitzaref lakesev akur lazohov. In Hebrew, the word mitzaref means a silver refinery. There's a different word in Hebrew for refining gold, kur, and a different word in Hebrew for refining silver, mitzaref, and I believe there's even a different word in Hebrew for copper and for iron. There's a variety of different words that all denote refining. And tzrufa imros chamed means your words are very refining. And of course, they fit contextually into the spirit that we've established, that we're dealing with tzedek. We're dealing with righteousness, but righteousness that's very exact, that's very gvuridik, like tzidkoscha tzedek, tzaddik hadin. And under those conditions, the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu are very corrective, right? That's what Golus is, that's what Halom is v'esteidim are, that's what darkness is. It's a process of correction. And nobody likes correction, right? Maybe it's necessary, but no one likes it. Nobody asks for it. Nobody celebrates it, right? Nobody asks for it. In the Gemara you have that there were Tanoim and Amoraim who suffered, and their friend asked them if they're happy about the Yisurim, and they said, I don't want the Yisurim, and I don't want the reward for the Yisurim. And like we say in the morning in davening, nobody wants to be tested. When the Eibishter brings a test, that's the Eibishter's business. But then you have in the Gemara the Ma'aseh with Rabbi Paltiel Reb Shimon. And there's something called Yisurim Shel Ahava. Yisurim Shel Ahava is for the biggest tzaddikim. If you're familiar with the Gemara, Rabbeinu HaKadosh wrote the Mishnah. His Yisurim, there's two stories, one after the next. The first is the story of the son of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, Rabbi Paltiel Reb Shimon. And then right after that, the story of Rabbeinu HaKadosh. They both suffered terribly physically. But the Gemara says you cannot compare the tzaddis of Rabbeinu HaKadosh to the tzaddis of Rabbi Paltiel Reb Shimon. And the Paltiel Reb Shimon, we Yisurim Shel Ahava, they were sufferings that came from love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Rabbeinu HaKadosh was Yisurim Shel Yirah, do with something that he did wrong. And Yisurim Shel Ahava is very hard to explain. The biggest tzaddikim have Yisurim just for the sake of Ahava, of the love for HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I remember, I'll never forget this as long as I live. The summer before the stroke, the summer of Tafshin Nun Aleph, 1991. I remember where I was standing in Shul. So the Rebbe must have been at home. No, maybe it was in 770. And the Rebbe was talking about his father, his own father. And the Rebbe expressed himself, these are the words precisely. The Tata had Zeiche given to leiden Yisurim Begashmias. My father's Zeiche merited to suffer Yisurim Begashmias. Now, who would say that about anybody, let alone their own father? And when the Rebbe was La'alenu ill, and the Rebbe suffered a lot physically, Gefährliche Yisurim, I thank God was not so into the details of what was going on by the Rebbe, because it was not my place. It was not anybody's place. But I would always flash back to what the Rebbe had said the summer before. Quote, the Tata Hadzechi events of Leiden Yisurim Begashmis. It's called Yisurim Shel Ahava. It's a very, very high madrega. The explanation is that the Yisurim is not taking away anything negative, but the cleansing brings a higher madrega of Kedusha, and that's the last two words of Pasuk Mem, V'avdecha Aheva. And your slave, David HaMelech, is talking about himself, loves the Yisurim. So it's Rufim, Ros Chamayeh, the words of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when the condition of the relationship between the Eibishter and Yidden is tzedek, judgment, concealment, halamas v'esteidim. So Rufim, Ros Chamayeh, keeping Torah and mitzvahs under those conditions is incredibly reparative, it's incredibly healing, it's incredibly corrective. V'avducha heva, and your servant, namely David HaMelech himself, loves it. He loves it because of the Ma'ila of Yisurim Shel Ahava. And then in Kuf Mamalef he continues, I'm young and I'm embarrassed, I'm shamed. And nevertheless, I don't forget your mitzvahs. And of course the way you would explain this is that in the history of the Jewish people, there have been times that Yidden had plenty, and then you have times which are moged, which are difficult. And when things are difficult, a lot of people lose hope and they lose their identity. And the human nature is that when you lose your identity and somebody else doesn't, you tend to condescend. And David says about himself, I'm young and I'm shamed. I'm young and I'm shamed by my refusal under conditions of tzedek, under conditions of challenge and concealment, to forget the Torah. That even though I'm young and I'm shamed because of my emunah. What lashon pasuk? What did we have before? In pasuk kuf lamed ches, ve'emunah miyoy. You need a emunah from the madrega of Yechidish benefesh. And now he says, because and of course I want to add one more very important detail, that it's brought in Chassidus, based on the Gemara in Masechta Chulin, that when the Eibishter created the world, there were Shnei Ameir Sagadelim, two great luminaries, and then the Levana Kvayachol told the Eibishter, two kings cannot share one crown, so the Eibishter told the Levana, reduce yourself. So the Levana said to the Eibishter Kvayachol, because I said a davar hogan, I have to be ma'at myself. I told you something which is accurate, so I have to be the one to pay. And the Eibishter answered, Yisrael nikro shmecha, Shmuel HaKatan, David HaKatan, that Yidden are going to carry your name. What's the name? The Yidden are going to carry Katan. Katan means small, and of course, simply and literally, Katan means bittul, right? One who is small, that means one who is humble. The moon is small, and the sun is large, and the philosophical idea is that the moon is a from bittul, but there's another factor. And the other factor is that the idea that the moon is small also means that the moon is a makabel. It doesn't have its own light. Everything it has, it gets from a different source. And means I'm small. But the upside of that katnas, that being small, means that I depend on the Eibishter. And my light, and my life, and my positiveness, and my optimism, and my goodness comes from Atzmos Hussein Sav Baruch. Then, of course, you have the pasuk which we all know. It's Koscha Tzedek Le'elam. Your righteousness is righteous. Your righteousness is just forever, and your Torah is true. And this we say, of course, on Shabbos. It's one of the three tzidkoschas that we say. And as I'm sure you know, yesterday we didn't say tzidkoscha because it was Yom Tov. That tzidkoscha is tachnon. And it says in Shulchan Aruch, in the Rebbe Shulchan Aruch, the reason we say three tzidkoscha, I forgot the second one, and the third one is tzidkoscha tzedek le'elam v'tzidkoscha emes. The reason we say three times tzidkoscha is because there were three tzaddikim who passed away in Minchas Shabbos, and it's an infant tzaddik adin. It's accepting the Eibishter's judgment. I'm going to read it inside. Tzidkoscha k'harayim t'shechat tohim rabba odom avhem t'shiyad Hashem. Tzidkoscha l'kim admorim asher sis delzo l'kim michamecha, and then tzidkoscha tzedek le'elam v'tzidkoscha emes. There were three tzaddikim who passed away Shabbos to Mincha. One of them is David HaMelech, another one is Yosef HaTzadik, and the other one is Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu passed Shabbos to Mincha, David Shabbos to Mincha, and David Shabbos was talking yesterday. And the way we understand it is that in the year that David HaMelech passed away, it was Zayin Sivan. Right? There's a whole shaila. Could there have been 2 days Yom Tov and Zman Bayis Rishon? And B'Pashas there could not have been, because the holiday Sveika de Yema has to do with stuff which didn't start till Zman Bayis Sheni, although there's a rasag to the contrary, and now's not the time to go into it. But apparently David HaMelech passed away on Shabbos, the second day Shavuos, which is why in yesterday's Chitas, Zayin, Sivan, the first pasuk, first kapitel, Lamites, has the word that Yeni Hashem Kitzi, Umidas Yomai Mahi, Edom Achodol, and David HaMelech wants to know when he's going to die. And the Gemara says Hashem tells him this is not revealed to a person, but they told him he would pass away on Shabbos. And then there's a whole story of how David tried to prevent his death. But Rabbis Machshavas Belev Ish Vatzas Havai He Sochav. David HaMelech passed away Shabbos to Mincha. So we say Tzidkos Tzedek as Tzedek Adin, is accepting judgment. And that's of course part of the reason I'm sort of reading these 8 psukim in this light, in this spirit of judgment. Tzidkos Tzedek Le'elam, your judgment is just forever, and your Torah is true. So there's 2 connotations here. The first connotation we're talking about judgment, and the second is talking about Torah. And of course the word emes is a very important word, huh? The word emes is a word which has great significance and meaning, right? I believe that on our list of words, ois vav, right? Ois vav was emes, truth. And the truth hurts. The truth hurts. And that's the consistency between Koscha Tzedek and Teiroscha Emes. And like the Mefarshim would say, La'olam goes on both of them. The Eibishter's judgment is always true. The Eibishter's Teda is always true. Which means to say, it's not a circumstance where now there's a purpose for the judgment, and then in hindsight you say it wasn't necessary, but if the Eibishter gives judgment, it's true forever. And the Eibishter's Teda is also true forever. Like the Rebbe used to bring always the pasuk, that Mashiach has to be so great that it justifies the Tzidkos Chatzedek Lam, that even after Mashiach comes, we look back at the Tzaras HaGolos, Rachmana Litzlan Hoyel Yisiyah, they talk about Pamayim Tzara, and there's justice in them. That's what the Rebbe, the famous word from the Rebbe. The Rebbe wrote this to Mr. Ben Tzvi in 1956. But he's describing a childhood fantasy. The Rebbe's childhood fantasies took place before World War I. The Rebbe wrote this letter after World War II, and you don't need me to tell you what happened intermittently in between, to the world and to the Jewish people in particular. And in Hebrew, the word for president is Nasi. So the Rebbe writes to Mr. Ben Tzvi, he was the first president of Israel, that I'm uncomfortable addressing anybody with the Torah Nasi, because in my mind, Nasi goes on Mashiach. And he says to Mr. Ben Tzvi, I know you're a sensitive man, and I trust that you'll appreciate my sensibility and forgive me for not addressing you with the technically correct term, which is Nasi. When Shazar was president also, by the way, the Rebbe called him all kinds of wonderful names, but he refused to use the word Nasi. Anyway, in this letter to Mr. Ben Tzvi, the Rebbe writes very famous words, from the time I went to Cheder, and even before, I began to develop in my mind an imagining of what the world of Mashiach is going to look like. And that Mashiach has to be so good to justify all the Tzaras HaGolos. And he mentions this pasuk, and of course, when the Rebbe wrote it as a child, thought about it as a child, even then the idea that Mashiach should be so great to give justice to Yiddish Tzaras was awesome. But when he wrote it as an adult after the Holocaust and after all the Tzaras, to still write those words is unbelievable. And the Rebbe says, my vision of Mashiach is Tzidkos Chatzedek Li'elam and Teirascha Emes Li'elam. That after Mashiach comes, we look back at the judgment and it makes sense. And certainly the Teda is Emes. And of course the ultimate Emes is Chesed. The Eibush created the world for Chesed. But in this pasuk, you speak about Tzedek and Emes. Tzedek and Emes are painful terms. That you note when things are correct but not comfortable for us. And like I said, the Mefarshim says, Tzidkos Chatzedek Li'elam, V'Sirascha Emes Li'elam. You have to read the word Li'elam twice, if I remember correctly. And of course, the positive side of this is that if after Mashiach comes, you see Tzedek in the judgment, and you see Emes in the Torah, then it becomes good. L'ased Lavi, the Gevuras anim tokim. The Gevura becomes sweet. Like the Chazal say, Ein ha-Gevuras nimtokim ela b'sharshun, the ultimate sweetness of Gevuras, sweetening of Gevuras from the Gevura itself. I have encountered oppression, hardship. And again, I think David HaMelech is not speaking only about himself, he's speaking about the idea of hardship. My Torah, my mitzvah, your mitzvahs are my toy, my plaything. Now the Eibusha should forgive me, but I'm going to say pshat different than what it says in the Tanya, right? In the Tanya you have in Kuntas Achrin, based on the Pasuk and the Gemara. We learned it in Oizayin in this capital, and when I did it, I sort of went over it quickly, because the focus then was different. That Zmiris Hayili Chukecha Baveis Magure. The David HaMelech had a lot of tzaras in his life, and he called the Eibishter's mitzvahs midas. And the Gemara explains that he survived his hardships by learning Torah, and it gave him joy. And in the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says that he got joy not just from learning Torah, but from the appreciation of how powerful the Torah was. That the Torah, one little act of Torah, can bring an enormity of Ein Sof into the world. And the Gemara says, David Nenash, Midas Kodesh, David Nenash, I was punished in Midas Kodesh Lahu, because Torah is not meant for personal entertainment and reward. It has to be Shashui HaMelech Ba'atzmusei. But the Taich Mitzvah Shashui is that when a person finds himself in a situation of Tzaro Motek, from the mitzvahs he finds Shashui, he finds Tainuk. And perhaps Shashui is different than Zmiris, right? Especially if he ties Zmiris, Meloshan Lazamer Aritzim. But to say Shashui is Shashui HaMelech Ba'atzmusei. The bottom line is, when you go through Tzaras, what keeps you Torah and mitzvahs? But it's tough, right? And I think, like I said to you before, this pasuk, Tzimsasni Kinosi, Kishakchud Verechat Tzarei, Right, again, forgetting how the Mefarshim explained it, David is so upset by the fact that Yidden have forgotten the Torah. But they've forgotten the Torah because the Eibishter made it hard. And this brings out of the Melech Amida that's very upsetting. I'm falling to pieces from my jealousy of the, so to speak, the Eibishter's expectation. And here David Melech speaks about himself. And the final pasuk is Tzedek et v'sechel liyelu. Your witness is true forever. Havineni v'yechel. Allow me to understand, and I will live. And of course, the pshat in these pasuk is that we go through these hardships and we survive these hardships. And save kol safe, Mashiach comes. And when Mashiach comes, we have a havana, an understanding of the things that we went through. And ve'echya means we'll live forever. The Mefarshim all say the havineni ve'echya means elam haba and chayim nitzchim. The Rishonim say havineni ve'echya means I'm going to live forever in elam haba and chayim nitzchim. So I want to add that there's a sikha from the Rebbe, and I spent some time looking for it, and I didn't find exactly what I'm looking for, which is a bit frustrating for me. I found similar things, but not what I wanted to find exactly. But that I didn't make it up. That it says in Tanya Perek Lamed Zayin, chapter 37 in Tanya, that Mashiach's coming has to do with Masena, but Vedesena calls man Meshech HaGolos. Mashiach's coming has to do with the work and the Mesiras Nefesh, the hard work we do during the times of Golos. So the Rebbe asks a simple question. Mashiach's coming only has to do with the hardship that we do during times of Golos. What about the fact that we learned Torah and did mitzvahs in times of the Beis HaMikdash? It doesn't count. And the Alter Rebbe indicates that there's something unique about the Torah mitzvahs Zman HaGolos, which brings us the schus of Elam Haba, of Chayim Nitzchim. And the Rebbe brings out the point of Mesiras Nefesh. And that Mesiras Nefesh is the real avodah, and Mesiras Nefesh brings about the real schar. And therefore, even though, of course, there's Torah and mitzvahs in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, but the Torah and mitzvahs we did under the circumstances of Mesiras Nefesh, this is the Tzedek et v'sechel le'elam havineni v'yechir. That the Chayim Nitzchim of a Yid are a reaction to Maseina v'Aveseina calls man Meshech HaGolos. And again, if I'm not wrong, my recollection is that in that Sikha, the Rebbe connected it to the Rambam about free will. That the Rambam has two prakim in Hilchos Tshuva, where he talks about free will. So you have four prakim that describe Tshuva. Then you have two prakim that talk about free will, that's Perek Hey and Perek Vav. And then in chapter 7, he goes back and says, now that we established that a person has free will, a person should exercise that free will in doing Tshuva. And the Rebbe asks that question on that Sikha as well, on that Rambam as well. Only in Tshuva there's free will. Free will belongs in the beginning of Rambam. I have this feeling that the free will is the 14th principle. There's 13 principles of faith. The 14th principle of faith is that we have free will to choose to embrace and to believe in these principles. But this is already very bold. You can't just make up a pshat like that. But free will is the yesod of everything. Why does the Rambam bring free will dafka in association with tshuva? And again, if I'm not incorrect, what the Rebbe says in that sikh is because tshuva is in a Mesiras Nefesh. And there's an exercise of free will, the Mesiras Nefesh, which is far greater than any other exercise of free will, even if it's connected to Torah mitzvahs and in Yonim Pnimiyim and so on and so forth. Like the Rebbe brought in the Sikha. Sheker achein v'hevel hayefi isha yiras Hashem hitasalo. Sheker achein zeh deri shel Moshe. V'hevel hayefi zeh deri shel Yeshua. Isha yiras Hashem hitasalo zeh deri shel Yehuda Rebbe Eloi. Shoyim miskasen shisha b'ksus echad ve'eskim b'teira. That Moshe Rabbeinu's time is called Sheker. Yeshua ben Nun's time is called Hevel. In the times of Yehuda Rebbe Eloi, the people were so poor, there were 6 people would share a beged and sit to learn Torah. This is Isha Yiras Hashem Hitas Halo. And the question is, what was Moshe supposed to do? They lived in a good time. What was Yeshua supposed to live in a good time? And no one's taking away the good of their Torah mitzvahs or the good of their time, but still, Isha Yiras Havaya Hitas Halo, the thing that matters to the Eibishter more than anything else is when you didn't overcome difficulties and they serve the Eibishter with the Mesiras Nefesh. And this is why Bechira Chavshes is associated dafka with Tshuva, and why the Alter Rebbe brings that the Schar L'Asad Love is big for the Beit Zman HaGolos. And that's what these 8 psukim are describing. These 8 psukim, I guess if you have to put them in other words, are Golos. Right? The first pasuk is still a good time. Tzaddik Ada Adishem. Mishpatecha Yasha Mishpatecha is a better time, but immediately thereafter starts Tzivisa tzedek edisecha ve'emuna miyut. When there's a tzivisa tzedek, then you have to have a lot of emuna. And simsasni, kenosli, geshachat, v'lachatzaret, tzrufim, roscham eid, v'havtuch hevet may be very corrective, but it's painful. Tzara necha v'nivze, p'gedecha l'shachochti. Tzidkoscha tzedek le'elom, v'siroscha emes. Tzara motzek mitzunim, mitzecha shashui. And it finishes tzedek eid v'secha le'elom. The truth of the Eibish's Eidus is forever. And lost at love, we're going to have aveni ve'echye. We're going to have an understanding and a life which is forever, based primarily on the surviving and overcoming and being Jews as the Eibush wishes in spite of the difficulties. So I'm going to stop now. Right, that class was much shorter than the class that I gave on pay, probably half the size. The pay was 2 hours. This is less than an hour. And I believe that I'm not just giving this interpretation because I'm lazy or some other reason. I believe that the psukim, just like in the morning, the psukim gave me the leaning that the Inyan of Plois is speaking about Eir and Seviv and all these lofty Inyanim. The Tzaddik is speaking about Tzedkoscha Tzedek Le'elam Mitzrascha Emes. And of course the point of this all is Ad Mosai, Ad Mosai, Ad Mosai. And we should have the Gula Shleiman. I want to finish with this vort. That when this quarantine started, the Shluchim sent around a maimer. And at the time I objected, but now I understand what they meant then. They sent them on the Maimer that the Rebbe said in 1964, Tov Chav Dalet. I think it was Yisrei. And the Teichen of the Maimer was based on the Maimer of the Mittel Rebbe, where the Mittel Rebbe asked the question. Lahavan Inyan Lekichas Adjachal B'Bnei Yisrael. It was the time of the Cantonists, or the beginning of the time of the Cantonists. And the Mittel Rebbe talk about understanding the significance of this Gezeir of little children, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old, taken away for 25 years of training. 25 years of training. And then the military service started. In other words, in Russia there was a concept of a human being who is nothing more, nothing less than a soldier. That's all he knows. There's no life, there's no family, there's no education, there's soldier. Take a child, 25 years of training, all he knows is soldierai. That's how it was. Tzarske Soldaten, that's it. All they knew was loyalty to the king till the last drop of blood. That's how they were raised. And there was a gzeira of Yiddish Kinder, Rachmana Litzlan, went on for quite a while. So the Mittel Rebbe said, Amai Mechsidis, the Mittel Rebbe passed away because he didn't want to deal with it. But before he passed away, he said, Amai Mechsidis, Lohavani, Lekichas Anjachar Bnei Yisrael. And the Mittel Rebbe explained the gzeira. And what he said basically is that Jewish people live in Golos, and they become a little bit complacent. In other words, it looks like they're doing mitzvahs with less than full chayas. And the taina is that they don't care. So the Eibishter makes it hard. And when Yidden show that they're prepared to do mitzvahs, even though there's a hardship, it demonstrates that the Yidden have a chavivas in Teireh mitzvah. So the Rebbe said this, Maimer, if I'm not mistaken, the Rebbe said, but eventually it becomes clear that they have a chavivas. And once it becomes clear they have a chavivas, they say, stop with the gzeiris. And I think that's the spirit of these psukim also, that the last of these 8 psukim says, will understand and we will live forever in this chad of the Tzidkoscha Tzedek Le'elam Emes. And tomorrow morning in Mitzvah we're going to do kuf. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I guess we could say now for sure we're on the home stretch. Now officially at 7 o'clock I'm going to be giving a shiur and a maimer. But probably it'll be closer to 8 o'clock because I haven't yet prepared. Good evening.